I didn't follow him. I didn't spy on his phone. I just checked his location once. And that single blue dot quietly destroyed the life I thought I was living. For most of my life, I believed love was quiet. It didn't announce itself. It showed up on time, paid the bills, remembered birthdays, and came home every night smelling like the same soap. That was how I explained my marriage to myself whenever someone asked. 16 years together. No scandals. No drama. Just routine. Predictable. Safe. I was 42, working part-time from home, managing everything that made a life look stable from the outside. Our house was always clean. Dinner was always planned. His shirts were ironed the way he liked them. Friends said we were lucky. I said nothing because luck felt like a fragile thing to tempt. My husband Daniel worked long hours, finance, numbers, deadlines that didn't care about time. I learned early not to question it. Late nights were normal. Weekends interrupted by urgent calls were normal. He said ambition required sacrifice, and I believed him because belief was easier than suspicion. We shared our locations. It had been his idea years ago. For safety, he said, in case something happens. I didn't argue. Trust was supposed to be simple. Tap yes, move on. Our evenings followed the same rhythm. He texted when he was running late. I waited. Sometimes dinner is warm. Sometimes with the TV on low. Sometimes with nothing at all. Just the quiet of a house that knew how to hold its breath. I noticed things before I admitted them to myself. How he stopped talking about work details. His phone never left his pocket. How his laughter sounded rehearsed. But I filed it all under stress. Men his age carried pressure differently, I told myself. Silence didn't always mean secrets. That night felt ordinary, too ordinary to be dangerous. I stood in the kitchen, reheating leftovers, the microwave humming like background noise to a life on repeat. He had texted earlier, working late, don't wait up. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel suspicious. I just checked his location out of habit. And that habit quietly became the moment everything began to shift. Because what I saw didn't match the life I had been carefully maintaining. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The blue dot on my screen didn't move. At first, I told myself the app was lagging. Technology always finds a way to embarrass people at the worst moments. I refreshed it once, then again, closed it, opened it. The dot stayed exactly where it was, like it had no intention of pretending anymore. It wasn't downtown. It wasn't near his office. It wasn't on the highway. It was parked in a quiet residential neighborhood I had never heard him mention. I zoomed in until the street name appeared. A cul-de-sac, clean, suburban. The kind of place people lived their private lives in, not worked late nights from. My chest tightened. Not in panic, but in recognition. Something inside me already knew. Even though my mind wasn't ready to say it out loud, I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The microwave beeped angrily behind me. But I let it scream until the sound felt ridiculous. I turned it off and sat down at the kitchen table, phone still glowing in my hand. The house felt larger suddenly, too quiet, as if it was watching me. I texted him, careful with every word. How late do you think you'll be? The reply came faster than it should have. Another hour. Client stuff. Client stuff. I stared at the message and felt something thin and sharp slide under my ribs. Not rage, not heartbreak, disappointment. The kind that settles when you realize someone has decided you're easy to lie to. I didn't argue. I didn't question him. Okay, drive safe. I kept watching the dot. It didn't move for another 40 minutes. That night he came home close to midnight. I heard the door before I saw him, the soft click of the lock, the careful footsteps, like he was entering a room where guilt might still be awake. I lay in bed with my eyes closed, slowing my breathing, listening. He smelled different, not dramatically, just enough. A new cologne layered under his familiar soap, subtle, intentional. The kind of detail men think women won't notice if they don't comment on it. He kissed my shoulder. Sorry I'm late. I didn't respond. In the morning, he acted normally. Too normal. Coffee, news, casual complaints about traffic. When he said, "Last night was exhausting," I nodded like a supportive wife and felt my stomach harden. I checked the location again while he was in the shower. The same street. The same stillness. I drove past it that afternoon, telling myself it was a coincidence. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I just absorbed the details. Identical houses, neatly trimmed lawns, curtains drawn tight in the middle of the day. That was the moment denial stopped working. I cried that night, sitting on the bathroom floor with the lights off, pressing my hand over my mouth so the sound wouldn't escape. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, it was grief. Grief for the woman I had been before I learned how easily a life could be split in two. But beneath the hurt, something else was forming, a tension. And once a tension sharpens, nothing stays hidden for long. I didn't confront him. That surprised even me. I thought betrayal would make me explosive, reckless, dramatic. Instead, it hollowed me out. It made everything quieter, sharper, as if my emotions had stepped back to let my instincts take control. I started sleeping lightly. Every sound pulled me awake. The hum of the refrigerator, his breathing, the vibration of his phone on the nightstand when it received messages he never opened in front of me. I learned the weight of his silence, learned how guilt sounds when it's trying to pass as exhaustion. During the day, I functioned. I answered emails, folded laundry, smiled when neighbors waved, but inside I was unraveling slowly, thread by thread. I replayed our years together in my mind, looking for the moment where this version of him had entered our marriage without my permission. I remembered how he used to text me photos of his lunch, how he once left a meeting just to hear my voice because I sounded tired. Now he barely looked up from his phone when I spoke. The truth wasn't just that he was somewhere else at night. It was that he had already left me emotionally. One evening, he stood in the doorway while I cooked and said, "You've been distant lately." The irony almost made me laugh. "I've just been tired," I said, keeping my back turned so he couldn't see my face. He nodded, relieved. That was all he needed. A reason that didn't require him to feel guilty. A version of the story where I was the problem. That night, after he fell asleep, I went into the living room and sat in the dark. No phone, no distractions, just me and the weight of everything I was pretending not to know. I thought about leaving, about packing a bag quietly, disappearing before the lies could finish hollowing me out. But the thought didn't bring relief. It brought anger, not the loud kind, the kind that burns steadily and is controlled. Why should I leave broken while he continued untouched? That was when the tears came. Not fast, not dramatic. They slid down slowly, silently, soaking into the fabric of the couch. I pressed my fingers into my knees to ground myself, reminding my body that I was still here, still solid, still capable of choosing what happened next. I wasn't weak. I was injured, and injuries demand care, not impulsive decisions. I wiped my face, stood up, and looked at our reflection in the dark window. A woman who had been faithful, patient, trusting, and a man who had mistaken that for blindness. Something settled inside me then. If he thought I was unaware, if he believed his double life was safe, then he had already underestimated me. And people who underestimate you never see what's coming next. The shift didn't happen in a dramatic moment. There was no scream, no confrontation, no sudden rush of courage. It happened quietly, on an ordinary afternoon while I was sitting alone in my car. I had gone out to buy groceries. I remember because I sat there longer than necessary, the engine off, keys still in my hand. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Not his name, a notification, a calendar reminder I hadn't touched in years. Mortgage review, documents updated. I frowned. We had refinanced the house 2 years ago, or at least that's what he had told me. I opened the notification, expecting nothing. Maybe a glitch, maybe spam. It wasn't. Attached was an automated email from our bank addressed to both of us. It referenced an updated property filing, a change request. My name wasn't listed under primary ownership. I stared at the screen, my heart slowing instead of racing. This wasn't about the affair anymore. This was about preparation. I drove home without turning on the radio. The silence felt intentional, like my mind needed space to connect dots it had been ignoring. Inside the house, everything looked the same. The couch, the photos, the life we had built together. But I saw it differently now, not as a shared space, but as a stage set where one actor had been rehearsing a separate script. I logged into our shared cloud account, something he never thought to change because he assumed I wouldn't look. There it was. A folder he hadn't bothered to rename, planning. Inside were scanned documents, financial statements, draft emails, conversations saved as PDFs, not love letters, logistics, discussions about future arrangements, asset protection, timeline alignment. He wasn't just cheating, he was reorganizing his life without me in it, and he had started months ago. The woman from the hotel wasn't a mistake. She was a transition. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me the most. Instead, something else happened. a clarity so sharp it almost felt peaceful. This wasn't about fixing our marriage. This was about protecting myself. I closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I thought about every moment I had minimized my discomfort, every time I had trusted without verification, every time I told myself love meant patience, even when patience was slowly erasing me. Love does not require you to disappear. That sentence landed fully formed in my chest. I picked up my phone and did something I hadn't done since my 20s. I searched for a lawyer, not a dramatic one, not a revenge-hungry one, someone calm, strategic, quiet, someone who understood that the strongest moves are the ones made without an audience. I booked a consultation for the following week. When he came home that night and kissed my cheek, I didn't flinch. When he said, "Long day," I nodded. And when he fell asleep beside me, believing he was still ahead of the truth, I lay awake, not heartbroken anymore. Just awake. Because once you see the full picture, you don't panic. You prepare. Once you stop asking why, your energy changes. I didn't need answers anymore. I needed control. The consultation with the lawyer wasn't dramatic. No heavy warnings. No talk of revenge. Just a calm woman with sharp eyes who listened without interrupting while I laid out the facts. The GPS, the hotel pattern, the financial documents, the missing ownership line. When I finished, she didn't gasp. She nodded. "He's not reckless," she said. "He's methodical, which means you have time if you don't tip him off." That sentence stayed with me. Time. I started observing him the way you watch the weather change, without emotion, without assumptions, just facts. He became predictable once I stopped believing his words. Late nights always followed the same route. Tuesdays and Thursdays meant work dinners. Sundays were suddenly sacred. Phone face down, longer showers, sudden privacy. He started paying more attention to how I spent money, asking questions disguised as concern. "You okay with expenses lately? Everything feels expensive these days, right?" I answered gently, agreeably. I became invisible on purpose. I opened a separate bank account. Small transfers at first, amounts he wouldn't notice. I copied documents quietly, screenshots, emails, statements. I learned where we were vulnerable and where I wasn't. At home, I stayed kind. That was the hardest part. Cooking dinner, folding laundry, sitting beside him while he scrolled through messages meant for someone else. Smiling when he talked about us, as if it were still a shared language. But inside, I was detaching layer by layer. I stopped imagining confrontations, stopped rehearsing speeches. I understood something fundamental during that time. Loud emotions only benefit people who want chaos. He was counting on me to break, so I didn't. I started walking in the mornings again, early, alone. The quiet air helped me think clearly. I made a list, not of grievances but of boundaries. What I would accept, what I wouldn't negotiate, what peace looked like if I chose myself. I wasn't planning revenge, I was planning freedom. And the more silent I became, the more careless he grew. Because people who think they're winning, stop hiding. That's when the final piece showed itself. The truth didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived quietly, the way everything real does. One Tuesday evening, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up on the nightstand. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't checking anymore. But the name flashed long enough to settle into my memory. A woman's name. No emoji. No disguise. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. Because by then, I already had what mattered. The lawyer called me the next morning. Her voice was steady, professional. "We're ready whenever you are, but I suggest timing this with precision." Precision, not anger, not tears. That night, I cooked his favorite meal. He noticed, complimented it, told me I seemed lighter lately. I smiled. Later, after dinner, I placed a folder on the table between us. Not slammed, not dramatic, just there. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "Read it," I said quietly. He laughed at first, a reflex. Then the laughter stopped. The color drained from his face as pages turned. Bank statements, GPS logs, legal notes, the apartment lease, his name alone on it, dated months ago. The lawyer's letter outlining separation terms, asset division, and the clause he hadn't noticed when he'd removed my name. His hands shook. "This isn't what you think," he started. I didn't interrupt. Because when someone realizes they've lost control, they talk too much. "I never planned to hurt you," he said. "It just happened." I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing. "I know," I replied. "That's why I planned." Silence stretched between us. Thick, heavy, honest. He reached for my hand. I pulled it back, not sharply, just enough. You didn't leave me, I continued calmly. You left first. Every night you chose somewhere else. He whispered my name like it was a spell that might undo things. But consequences don't respond to nostalgia. Within weeks, the separation was formal, clean, controlled. He moved out without arguments because there was nothing left to fight for. His other life collapsed under its own weight. Secrets don't survive daylight. People asked questions. I didn't answer. I didn't need witnesses. The quiet did the work for me. And in that silence, I realized something powerful. Justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs clarity. The house felt different after he left. Not emptier, just quieter. The kind of quiet that doesn't press against your chest, but slowly teaches you how to breathe again. For the first few days, I kept expecting his habits to echo back at me. The sound of keys at odd hours, the vibration of his phone on the table. His voice asked what was for dinner while already scrolling somewhere else. But
We need
nothing
to
came,
address this
only
immediately.
stillness. I
The
rearranged
details
small
here
things at
are
first,
critical.
moved a chair closer to the window, threw away old grocery lists written in his handwriting, changed the bed sheets. White, clean, neutral. It felt symbolic, though I didn't say that out loud. People assume closure is dramatic. It isn't. Closure is waking up one morning and realizing your stomach doesn't hurt anymore. Closure is checking the clock and not wondering where someone is. Closure does not need answers because the silence already gave them. The legal process finished without scenes. He tried once, sent a long message apologizing, explaining, remembering old vacations like souvenirs he wanted back. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because I was done explaining myself to someone who had lived a double life while I carried the weight of both. I started walking in the evenings, same route, same pace. The city felt unfamiliar at first, then slowly began to feel like mine again. I noticed things I hadn't in years. The way sunset hits the buildings, the sound of children laughing in a park I used to rush past, the comfort of my own thoughts without interruption. I learned something about myself in that season. I am not loud when I'm hurt. I am precise. I don't collapse. I withdraw, observe, and then choose myself without announcing it. One afternoon, as I stood by the window with a cup of tea, I saw my reflection clearly for the first time in months. Not the woman waiting for a man to come home. Not the wife explaining absences to herself. Just me, steady, whole, enough. I didn't win by exposing him. I won by leaving quietly with my dignity intact. Because the most powerful thing I ever did. Stop asking for loyalty from someone who has already left. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't punishment, it's peace that no longer includes them.